Hello, I'm a master's student in sociology at the University of Victoria. Rosario is here in the audience, and we're going to be discussing a minimal computing approach for web archive research.
Application again. This is default to be panel.
Sorry. um, well, as we know, most research with web archives is big. It's characterized by large-scale, computationally intensive work with gigabytes or terabytes of data. Even yesterday at the keynote, we heard about how web archives are being used to train large language models. While this research is very interesting and it's very useful, it also can exclude a lot of people who might not have the skills to work with this type of data large scale. And also, web archives are growing faster than the resources available at many research institutions, especially in the Global South, in Latin America, where we're from. There are several limitations in access to computing power, to storage, and all of these technical and financial barriers to conducting research can exclude researchers who could benefit from including web archives in their research. And when we highlight the large-scale projects only, when we discuss examples of web archive research, it can prevent people from even seeing themselves as capable of doing research with web archives. And so as another perspective to approach web archive research, we propose using the idea of minimal computing, or the perspective of minimal computing, which has been discussed in digital humanities for many years, and it is defined as work undertaken in the context of constraints in access to hardware, software, access to the internet, to electricity, or access to technical education. And you don't have to be facing all of these constraints at the same time. You might be facing only one or two, but you can include a minimal approach to overcome some of these constraints. And minimal computing also refuses the idea that innovation in digital research is defined by newness, scale, or scope. And it also seeks to reduce the need for substantial storage and processing power, which, as we know in web archives, is usually very large and needed to conduct research. As an example of this minimal computing approach and how we used it in our research, we did it to analyze Latin American feminist movements in the archive web. And we used two collections from Archive.it and to deal with all of the data that the Human Rights Collection from Columbia University had. We obtained a derivative of the PDF metadata from the Archives Research Compute Hub, and then we sampled it because the derivative had 800,000 records of the PDFs, and when we filtered it to only include materials from Latin America in Spanish, we ended up with around 850 PDFs, so it became a lot more manageable to deal with 850 PDFs rather than 800,000. Once we had this small sample, we performed topic modeling to identify which were the main themes in the PDFs and discussing Latin American feminism. And in the third step, we did a close reading of the most representative documents in that sample to confirm that the topics that emerged from the topic modeling were being accurate. Of course, this approach has some limitations, especially the example that I mentioned, because the Archives Research Compute Hub is not free, so it might not be accessible for people with economic constraints. In our case, the constraints that we faced were more technical. We didn't have access to storage or computing power. But this approach also requires digital literacy. Doing topic modeling is not necessarily like something you do like very easily. But there are also some opportunities with this minimal computing approach because it can encourage creative approaches to web archive research. When you're facing these constraints, you figure out ways around them. And one possible way that we didn't explore but that might be useful is using web-based text analysis tools such as Variant tools to analyze small samples of text from web archives. That's all for me. Thank you so much.